Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today I'll be drawing some Land of the Lustrous fan art. I just finished reading the manga after about 12 years of it being published, so I wanted to celebrate how good the art and story is while making some art of my own. Fair warning, this illustration will contain spoilers for the last couple of volumes, maybe all the volumes if I'm being super honest, so maybe don't watch this one if you want to read the manga. Anyways, let's get into it. So, for those of you who are unfamiliar with the story, Land of the Lustrous by Haruko Ichikawa is set in a sort of post-apocalyptic Earth in which humanity no longer exists, but instead is represented abstractly by three types of beings. There are gem people who live on Earth, the Lunarians who live on the moon and invade Earth to gather gems, and then people who live on the sea. Those people aren't really relevant to this video, so I won't really be talking about them, but the main points are that the gem people and the moon people, they're not friends, they fight a lot. The story mostly follows the gem people, with our protagonist being Phosphophyllite, or Phos, who's made up of a very brittle material and breaks very easily. The narrative starts with Phos not really knowing what role they should play in their community, since they're too brittle to fight against the Lunarians, versus some characters like Diamond, who's I think a hardness of 10 and can fight very well without breaking. But over time, certain events and tragedies lead Phos to replace parts of themselves with harder gems and materials, and their goals and ambitions also begin to change. You guessed it, not for the better. In this illustration, I'm depicting 3 eras of Phos because their appearance changes a lot throughout the manga. One of the first changes is that they gain arms made of gold, and eventually they lose their head, and I mean literally, and it's replaced by the head of lapis lazuli, whose body was taken by the Lunarians. With all the inclusions in their body, Phos loses their original purpose and becomes driven to find out why the Lunarians and gems are fighting, and in doing so they disrupt the status quo of their community. And I mean really disrupt. Like no one is having a good time in the last few volumes of this manga. It's kind of a depressing read at the end, but I would still recommend. I'm skipping a lot of the story here for the sake of brevity, but eventually Phos becomes like a quasi-human being because they've included parts of all 3 beings or races, Lunarians, Sea People, and Gem People, into their body, and they basically become God. So we have Gold Phos represented in this illustration by the hands, Lapis Lazuli Phos represented by the head, which I may or may not have drawn yet on screen, and God Phos being held in the gold hands. I'll put up some manga panels now to show you all sort of the transformation that Phos goes throughout the manga. This is how Phos first looks, very innocent and happy, but this is also Phos, and so is this, and finally we have God Phos. Painting gems and gold are not things I'm very familiar with, so I was initially pretty worried about the painting process and how it would sort of go. I just knew that I wanted to make an illustration for this series because I've been reading it for so many years. I really love the art, and I was more or less willing to take the risk of trying out painting new materials just so I could, draw fan art for something I really enjoy. Thankfully, I had lots of references in the manga to work with, which made my job a lot easier, and I kept a pretty limited color palette, which also simplified things. Also, when in doubt, I just went over certain areas with a soft airbrush set to the Add Glow layer setting, which added some good lighting around God Phos and to the eye area on Lapis Phos. After being done with this illustration, there are probably things I would do differently, but overall I'm really happy with this result, especially considering I don't usually do compositions like this. If you've seen some of my other videos, I really like to stick to character design, which means I just draw a character, maybe some elements of that character like a portrait or their weapons, something like that, or their palette, and there's no background. But this illustration actually has a background. I didn't really have anything planned for the background other than the half-star symbol that you see me drawing a couple times throughout this video. In the manga, that symbol is a representation of the Lunarians coming to Earth, so I thought it would be a cool element to include. Other than that though, I sort of just played with some painterly textured brushes until I more or less landed on a starlit ocean, and just stuck with it. I said, yep, this is what's happening, this is good enough for me. It's pretty simple as backgrounds go, but I didn't want something overly complicated because the focus should really be on the foreground in any case. I think between this video and my last video, it's pretty easy to tell that I'm sort of trying to boost my artist repertoire by drawing things that either I think are difficult to draw or I'm not used to drawing. You can see that I'm drawing hands in this one, and I also drew a lot of hands in my previous illustration, which if you're an artist or even tangentially related to artist communities, you will know that everybody everywhere hates drawing hands, and it's so hard. So I really went out of my way to draw hands here, but also add a unique texture to them. And then also with the portrait in both this one and my last video, I was really focusing on incorporating more textured brushes and also working on understanding the planes of the face. Of course, that sort of goes a little bit differently here because half the face is like a broken up gem, which also added some challenge. But yeah, I think I'm pretty happy with the things I've been working on in my last couple of videos. I'll be excited to see how I'm able to incorporate these changes to my style in later videos, maybe even character designs, so that'll be fun. I think that's enough of me talking about my process though, so now, you guessed it, it's book corner time! Woo! Since the last video, I read not one, but 2 books, and I can't wait to tell you all about them because this is the only outlet I have to yap about the kinds of books that I like. So I read 2 books from the same series. It's A Deadly Education by Naomi Novik and The Last Graduate, also by Naomi Novik. I was sort of looking for like a dark academia book, but also it had to be fantasy related, so it's set in a magic school. And I really liked this book because unlike a certain other magic school book that you might have heard of, you might know what I'm talking about, the magic is actually really fleshed out and explained in a way that makes it both harder to understand but deep enough that you know that like there's an actual system working behind it. And I really liked the narration of Elle, who's the main character. She's just so caustic and like funny, and the writing style is very flow of consciousness, so you kind of just get her feelings all the time and what she's thinking. And she's not having a good time because basically she's like prophesized to destroy the world, but she was raised by a very pacifist mom, so her whole thing is like, yeah, I'm never gonna destroy the world, but every time I ask for a spell, it's like I'm trying to get a spell to clean my house, and actually it's a volcano to destroy the entire world. And she's just so done with this stupid prophecy, and she's just trying to get through her 4 years of magic school. And I just really enjoyed the narrative. The second one ended on a cliffhanger, so I'm excited to see where the third one goes. And I'm excited to read more books by Naomi Novik. I think she's also written Spinning Silver, which is very popular, and something else, which I have in my bookcase but don't know what it's called. So yeah, that is my book corner for the day. That would be A Deadly Education and The Last Graduate, both by Naomi Novik. As you can tell, I very much like to talk about books, so soon in the future I'm thinking about doing a stream where I do a tier list of all the books I read in 2024. So yeah, stay tuned for notifications on that if you care about my reading habits. But if you're here just for the art, don't worry about it. I still will yap in my book corner, but other than that, I hope you can tolerate this well enough. So that's all for my book corner for today. At this point, I'm pretty much getting the final touches on this illustration. I'm basically working on the luminosity that I was talking about earlier, which is the add glow layer with a soft airbrush. And I haven't drawn the background yet, but I swear I'm getting to it. It's these sorts of final touches that I think can really make a piece, but also for me, because I can be quite indecisive, are the hardest for me to decide on, because I'm not really well versed in these sorts of finishing touches. And here you can see I'm sort of messing around with a very basic background. Textured brushes are your friend in these cases. Layer masks are your friend. If you don't know how to do something, you can just lie. You can just lie with these textured brushes or stamp brushes, and that can be really helpful. So, especially when it comes to shapes like the star that I'm drawing, of course I didn't actually draw the star. I just messed with a stamp of a star brush and duplicated it and added some layer masks, and here we go. It's a believable luminous Lunarian mark, and I'm okay with that. It doesn't have to look perfect because, once again, the focus is in the foreground. So yeah, I'm just doing a bit of color correcting, adding some lighting. Overall, I know I said it before, but I'm really happy with this illustration that I managed to make, and I only made it in 5 hours, which is pretty quick for me. I think I did a lot of things that I'm not used to, and for the most part they turned out really well, so enjoy me jerkily scrolling through this illustration so you all can see it. And I hope you enjoyed this video, seeing me talk about a sort of new art process, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you so much, as always, for watching. Bye!